I'm Shane.
And I'm Bo.
We are your Kentucky Fried Critics.
All right, welcome back to the show.
We have some news to let everybody know about for this episode.
Unfortunate mishaps.
Yeah. So we are today recording 2 days after we originally recorded this very episode. We had an unfortunate accident where as soon as we were done, completely finished, except for editing, we were about to open and start editing and we found that the computer had crashed.
File gone.
Nothing saved. So we are here doing this again. And just to let everybody understand a little bit of behind the curtain talk here for you. Normally when we do this, we watch the movies completely. Even if it's a movie that we both have seen, we will watch the movies separately, take our notes, and then do everything in our power to not speak to each other about the movie. Again, we might see each other and we might talk about everything else,
but we will literally anything but that movie.
Because we generally want this to be that kind of riff. We want it to be where we're sitting down and you guys are just catching the conversation we would have anyway about this movie. So just keep that in mind. If it sounds a little bit different than the last two as far as like how the conversation rolls, it's just because we're trying our best. I don't think we're going to have too big of a problem, mainly because the movie we're doing is something that's close to both of our hearts. We both love the franchise. Yeah. This is a movie that I owned. I'll go ahead and let Bo introduce the beer and then we'll introduce the movie and we'll start going, guys.
The beer for this week is Bell's Brewery Two Hearted IPA. It's an American IPA. But the Two Hearted was your clue if you were paying attention, playing along on Instagram. Shane, what's the movie?
We're watching Doctor Who, the movie.
Yay, Doctor Who.
So this is a movie that is a made-for-TV American adaptation of Doctor Who. It came out in 1996. It was exactly between what Doctor Who fans call Old Who, which is the start of the show in the 60s all the way up through like the late 80s. And New Who.
I looked it up. I think it was like 1986.
Okay.
So literally like 10 years later.
And so then New Who, which started in the 2000s and is still going strong now. This falls exactly in between and kind of catches tropes from both. Because again, Old Who has its own kind of tropes that it would hit for TV shows. And New Who definitely has its tropes. And you can kind of see where they borrowed the ones that already existed, and you can see where the people who started writing the new ones
were kind of coming up with new ideas to
kind of looked at this one and said, those are probably some good starting points for where we'll
expand on that.
Yeah. So that being said, this is Doctor Who, the movie. For anyone who doesn't understand why that's the beer for this movie, because you're not a Doctor Who fan, everybody who is a Doctor Who fan sitting beside you is probably already screaming at you, but we will tell you. It's because...
How do you not know this?
It's because the Doctor has...
Two hearts.
And again, the reason why it really is driven home for this movie is because if you watch this movie, you'll know they make sure you really understand.
They drive that point home, don't they?
That this man has two hearts. They tell you throughout the entire movie multiple times.
Doctor even screams it at us at one point.
So it just seemed perfect that we had our two-hearted hero is the person that we followed along as we had our two-hearted IPA.
Yeah, don't let the neat picture of the fish on the can fool you, though.
Yeah.
We typically go by the
name and not the picture, because while there are some times where the picture might be a perfect match, and once we get to where we're really struggling to find things, we might start doing something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But we would probably tell you. We would probably be like, heads up, this week, the picture. Look at the picture, that's your... I just want to take a moment before we go any further, since we are mentioning the clue on the beer. I want to clarify, because I've had some people reach out to me that didn't understand that's what we were doing. So yeah, the game, when we keep saying if you're playing at home, is just that every week when we upload our post of this week's current episode, we show you the beer that we're going to be drinking for the next week. That beer's name or drink, again, right now it's only been beer, but in the future it may not always be beer. But whatever we're drinking will be a clue. Whether it's the name, currently it's probably going to be the name. If we're doing a beer, it's going to be that the name is a clue for the movie. It could be ingredients if we ever start doing mixed drinks. But so it will be something to do with the drink is your clue.
Ooh, Kentucky Fried Cocktail Hour.
Ooh, maybe that's a Patreon.
That's like a Patreon thing.
Patreon exclusive. But so yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I've had a couple of people that were like, they're asking me to tell them what the next movie is, and I'm like,
you got to guess.
Maybe try looking at Instagram and seeing if you can figure it out. Since we're talking about Doctor Who, before we get started with the movie, because this movie, once we get into it, will go quick. And this has nothing to do with the fact that we've already done this one, and have everything to do with the fact that this was a made-for-TV movie that was a backdoor pilot. So the story kind of just...
It's fast-paced.
It's fast-paced. It wraps up. They were really kind of just want to introduce you to the characters that they may be coming back to if it got picked up for a show.
Yeah.
So since we have that, and we've already established that this is not just a movie podcast, it's a pop culture podcast. Sometimes we'll just do topics. So this is a little bit of dipping our toes in the water.
It's still a movie, but it's still TV.
And it gives us a chance to just talk about Doctor Who without having to,
without having to be like, well, we had to watch the whole first season.
Yeah, the whole series. Or again, at some point we will do just topics for pop culture. And this gives us that testing ground of what it's like to just talk about a topic and not be rehashing lots of scenes and stuff like that. So this just lets us test it out. Everybody can let us know how they like this part where we're just riffing on Doctor Who a little bit.
Who's your favorite Doctor?
I am a David Tennant fan.
You a huge David Tennant fan?
David Tennant is my Doctor.
I like him too. He's the best. I will not argue that one. He's the best Doctor. Chris Eccleston's my favorite though.
Oh,
the
first, ninth.
Yeah,
the first Doctor after this movie.
Yeah. He looked more like a soccer hooligan. So I'm like, oh, that Doctor looked like he might be able to fight somebody.
And see, now that is great because this Doctor in this movie, if you ask me, he is the closest to Christopher Eccleston's Doctor.
Yeah, I liked this Doctor too.
Christopher Eccleston's Doctor is quite a bit different than David Tennant or Matt Smith, again, just for people who are not Doctor Who fans and you want to look these up, that's going to be the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors.
Yeah. Chris Eccleston only got the one season, unfortunately. He didn't want to come back.
Yeah, he was having issues with the show or vice versa.
It was starting to get too goofy for him, I think.
Something weird.
I don't know.
He regrets the decision now.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, no, not even because of popularity. Because, again, he was dealing with, personal problems.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he started doing conventions recently, finally, and stuff like that. So he's come to terms with all of it.
Is there any conventions where he might be close? Man, I might go to that.
I don't know. We'd have to look into it. This Doctor is Paul McGann, just so we can go ahead and establish. So that way if we throw that out there, it's not that we're just automatically trying to name drop the actor constantly. It's more that, again, that's how the Who fandom refers to him as.
They don't give him a number.
He is the 8th Doctor, but most of the time people don't say 8th Doctor when talking about him. They'll say Paul McGann's Doctor.
That's mean. Give him the number. He's good in this movie, guys.
He is.
I really liked it. I asked you, I was like, yo, where's his season? I want to watch it. And you're like, oh, he doesn't have one.
Yeah, all he got was a brief moment in one of the movies recently for New Who where we see him turn into
John
he
Hurt.
regenerates.
Yeah.
A little bit of a foreshadowing to the actual body of everything that we'll be talking about here, because the regeneration is early in the movie and it definitely sets up this character.
It's a good scene too.
Yeah, the Doctor regenerates, and so every time you regenerate, we get a new actor play the Doctor.
Get a new guy.
And generally speaking, not just a new actor, it's an entirely new character. It is
new
the Doctor,
personality and everything,
it's
right?
the Doctor, but it's a new character. But generally speaking, you get a whole new interpretation of who this guy is and what it means to fly around and travel through time and space with the Doctor.
So now everybody understands regeneration. Let's get into the movie.
Let's get into this. All right. We're just going to start how we always do. I'm going to start with how the music makes you feel. Because again, you guys know you've listened to 2. That's always how I like to start. Because that first intro is what really grabs you.
Yeah, it sets you up.
There are some movies where literally if the music isn't good when it kicks in, I'm ready to stop it as soon as it starts.
It's like, oh, elevator music. Not this, though.
Yeah, no, this movie kicks in. Again, for anybody who is not a Doctor Who fan, the song that you're hearing as soon as this movie starts is the Doctor Who theme. Every Doctor gets their own version of this song. This is his version, where it's a movie, even if it's made for TV movie.
Yeah.
They definitely gave it some more grandiose feeling to it.
Yeah. You want to sit there and do the conductor arms while you're listening to it.
Exactly. This one, it's so much.
So you're like, yeah, let's get into this.
Whereas speaking of some of the other Doctors, like my favorite, David Tennant, he's a very goofy interpretation of the Doctor, and so his theme song is a lot more lighthearted, jovial, bouncing around
sprightly
kind of version. Yeah. This sets up the feel for the kind of Doctor we're about to get.
Yeah.
And so the movie starts off and we're hearing the music and we're seeing the TARDIS flying around. For those uninitiated, the TARDIS is just his spaceship. That's the name of it.
It looks like a police box from like 1940.
They will tell you in the movie, and we'll go ahead and tell you, TARDIS stands for time and relative dimension in space.
He can go anywhere in time and space.
Yeah, so it's not just a spaceship. It's not just a time machine. It will take you to both, wherever you want to go. The only problem is it very rarely takes you where you want to go and just takes you
where
somewhere.
It wants to go. The TARDIS is semi-conscious, in my opinion.
Well, it is. New Who sets up that it's definitely sentient. We see the Doctor in the TARDIS, and when we see the Doctor, we get to see this is the seventh Doctor, still alive. So that's the last Doctor from the show from the 80s before it went off air on the BBC.
Yeah, and he's taking the Master's body back to be buried or imprisoned. I wasn't clear.
They're not real clear with what's supposed to be happening there. They just tell us that he is either imprisoned already
in this little jar,
or he is dead after being imprisoned. But one of the two is supposed to be true. Either way, he is definitely either dead or on his last regeneration, which for a Time Lord, which is what the Doctor's alien race is called, means that they have no more regenerations. And the Master is a person who has already manipulated this system to a point to where...
Yeah, he's had like 15.
Yeah. This Master is already beyond that. So like the establishing shot is just to let us know somehow the Master, who is supposed to be the same alien race as the Doctor, is inside this box.
Yeah, he's in a box. It's a nice box. I want that box.
But it's still just
just a box.
And so the Doctor is sitting down,
drinking some tea, listening to some smooth jazz, just enjoying the trip.
And I want to point out, as it pans across, it gives us one scene to let us see that the Doctor we're seeing right now is supposed to be roughly 900 years old. This is a point of contention because Doctor Who, again, it does have a continuity, it has a canon. Most of those things did not come to exist until New Who.
We didn't care until then.
in Old Who, every Doctor would say the most outrageous stuff and have no connection, and it would be hard for you to connect it. And so, for instance, this Doctor is 900 years old. Some Doctors are older than this Doctor, so we don't know what that means when it says he's 900 years old.
I want to meet the Doctor that's like, I'm a billion years old.
You just have to go with it.
Yeah,
there's no real rules to how the Doctor works.
No one thought about canon until like 2005. So up until that point, everybody was just like, whatever.
But so we see the seventh Doctor. He's just hanging out.
Listening
to his music.
I love this TARDIS set, though.
Yeah, well, and it is a beautiful set, though. But generally speaking, if a Doctor gets a regeneration, the TARDIS gets a regeneration. The inside looks different.
Yeah, it gets updated.
Part of the reason I wanted to bring it up is because I want to say I'm glad they didn't change it, because the set they decided to give us in the beginning, if they would have shown us that for 5 seconds
and then giving it to us again
and then turn it to something different,
oh yeah, that would have been
I'd have been upset.
That would have been real mad.
We get to see the TARDIS, and it's you can see the connection to the Ninth Doctor, because the Ninth Doctor is very steampunky.
Yeah,
inside his TARDIS, and this one's not quite steampunky, but you can see where it's going steampunky. It's got old stuff and new stuff. It doesn't quite have the fusion of old and new stuff into one item.
Yeah, it's more like I piled old stuff around the new stuff.
Things, but you can tell where the steampunk idea someone could have watched this and been like, let's take that one step further for the next guy.
Full on.
So I really love that. And so while he's sitting there, though, we get no explanation for what happens. There's just all of a sudden like a flash, and the box is broken. We can assume that's part of the master plan.
Master plan, yeah.
Because he was the one that requested the doctor to
escort his body or
and
whatever.
So we can assume that he knew he was going to escape, but we don't get told that this is him enacting his plan. We just see flash of light, broken box.
And then goo. The Master has turned to Vaseline for some reason. I wrote it in my notes. I was like, why is the Master Vaseline?
It's so strange. As soon as the flash happens before the Doctor is looking right at the box as it breaks, which is even more bizarre. But
doesn't really react to it. He's just kind of like, that's bad. Well, and then the TARDIS starts going messing up.
Crazy, haywire, crash imminent.
Yeah.
Like temporal anomaly.
Yeah, temporal malfunction. We're going down.
Yeah. And so we as viewers and the Doctor himself barely even have a moment to deal with
any of it.
What's happening and the Master and all of it. Then we immediately cut from what's happening on the TARDIS.
Yeah, the Doctor's turning all his buttons and stuff, and then just cut
to Earth. And then again, we want to go ahead and let you guys know this movie is full of lots of cuts. We know from experience of having recorded this once, it can get really confusing for us, even having watched the movie multiple times, to remember where cuts are. So if you happen to watch the movie before listening to us and you know that we flub up where a cut was, we understand. We know we do.
If they've seen this, they're going to forgive us.
You'll understand if you watch it, because it cuts around so fast
and
to so many things that are happening concurrently. So it's so hard to tell you a complete thought of what's going on, because technically the scene would show you half of what's going on, cut to somebody else, what's going on with them at the exact same time, then cut back to the other moment. So if we happen to tell you two scenes but fuse them together, it's just because for us to talk about, it's way easier just to go ahead and say everything at once. Because it will get, we know from practice, it will get confusing. We will get lost.
In the fabled lost episode.
Yeah. So trust it.
Bo might have gotten lost.
We both might have gotten lost multiple times. You guys will never get to hear the first one. No one ever will. But there is a decent chance you are still listening to the better one.
Probably.
We are living in that timeline. We just immediately cut from what's going on the ship to what's happening on Earth. We cut to
Chinatown.
We cut to Chinatown, San Francisco. Got to be specific. Lots of towns have a Chinatown.
Oh, the Gene Hackman movie. You say Chinatown, I automatically think San Francisco.
Trust me, New York City has a Chinatown.
Really?
It's a very big Chinatown.
Did not know that.
All right, so we're in Chinatown, San Francisco. And we immediately see three friends running down the street. And at first, you don't even know that they're when you first see them running, you can't tell that they're actually fleeing, because they are fleeing, not running. You find that out quickly. But when you first see them, you really don't know.
Just running down the street.
Because it looks like it's supposed to be Chinese New Year or something. Like it looks like there's a festival going on. It could have been part of their celebration or something.
We got to get to the party.
But then you see them jump a fence with a car running right behind them.
And they just pull guns and start bow, bow, bow,
and so the guy just was like,
screw this, I'm out. And he just runs away.
Yeah, they're celebrating. They're happy.
The one dude does that cool kickflip kick. That was cool.
And as soon as they think they're in the clear, they turn around, and the alley they just jumped a fence into also has four dudes from the same gang that they were running from?
Yeah, because that car comes back.
This is the American Doctor Who, and it follows sex, drugs, and violence. Is the general rule, especially 90s American TV. Sex, drugs, and violence. That's the miracle equation to make something sell. And this movie definitely...
So we get some mindless violence.
Immediately. So as soon as these four guys, they pull out bigger guns.
Oh, yeah, they do.
They pull out like full-on assault rifles and
big
stuff.
Machine guns and stuff.
And immediately kill two of the three guys. And the third guy runs to what would be a direct line of shot for all four of the people. I don't understand why that's why I thought.
I did like this. All those guys reloaded. Did you notice that? Mm-hmm. They reload like 3 times. I liked that, because usually in movies, they never reload.
I appreciate that they showed them reloading, but can we address, this was made for an American audience, not the British audience. These guys reloaded 3 times. We're less than 5 minutes into the movie right now.
Yeah, that's like 100-something rounds.
They totally drop a lot
all 4 of
bullets.
them, that's like 100-something rounds.
Into 2 of 3 people.
They are very dead, but somehow magically this guy, he makes it, and he's like got up against the wall. Did you see the British?
Yes.
There's a British guard on the wall back there. It's like, oh yeah, this is still filmed in England.
Actually, I want to say, I don't know. I didn't look that up. I don't know if it is.
Was it? I figured because there's the British guard on the wall back there.
But keep in mind, do you know if that was a sound set?
That's true.
Again, you're assuming they filmed on a street.
That could be just the soundstage.
And so that could just be something that somebody wanted to put as a nod, since they're making a British connected movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Like normally I might be like, you're right, because usually if Doctor Who does American things, it is definitely still filmed in England. But keep in mind, this was a movie made with Universal.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They partnered with Universal.
So it probably was the Universal Studios.
Yeah, well, and the only British actors are the 2 people that played the Doctor. Everybody else is American
actor. Yeah,
so it would be a lot more money to fly all the Americans.
Yeah, that's true.
But so as this scene goes on with this beautiful soldier in the background,
yeah, the Queen's Guard right there,
the TARDIS magically starts to teleport in, because again, the TARDIS does both. It will actually fly like a spaceship, but it can also just materialize. Why he doesn't materialize every time he travels, I couldn't tell you. Because sometimes
you just need the cool shot of the TARDIS flying across the sky.
Because sometimes you see him just floating through space in it. So there's no rhyme nor reason. We have the TARDIS just starts to materialize right in front of our
first
Survivor,
first male lead. I don't know what you'd want to call him.
We know that he's gonna be. He's not even a lead. He's gonna be a main character. Yeah, but still not a lead. Like the actor didn't get lead character money for this. Yeah,
I need to look up the terminology for all this.
Stuff. So he's definitely gonna be an important character. Chang Li.
The only time they call
him
The only
Chang
time
we hear his full name is in the beginning, right when they say the full name one time. After that, everybody will call him Lee.
Yeah.
Only Lee. I don't know if they just forgot that they made his name Chang Li.
They just dropped it halfway. There's like, it's too much. The TARDIS materializes right while they're shooting. He doesn't get shot, and the doctor I don't understand why the doctor came out. Did he not hear the gunfire?
I don't know, because again, other Doctor Who clearly says you can hear what's going on outside the TARDIS.
I guess he wasn't paying attention.
Well, maybe he was just in such a panic because
he crash landed. Yeah. But he walks out and immediately takes one in the shoulder and goes down.
He takes 3.
Oh, does he?
If you hear the nurse.
They only showed the one squib.
Chang Li notices his buddies are dead. The doctor is dead. And then he's like, I better get this guy to a hospital.
Completely unbothered that his buddies are dead.
Yeah. We get the ambulance ride.
And we meet Bruce. Eric Roberts. The great Eric Roberts.
Eric, best of the best. Roberts. Get it right, man.
My bad. I'm sorry, Eric, if you're listening. I don't know why you would be, but if you are.
But so we get a brief moment where we see Bruce driving he's not driving. Bruce is the one administering aid to the doctor. And he realizes that this Chang Li does not know the doctor. Is definitely just
happened to be there.
And he's just like, well, look, we need you to sign some stuff if we're going to try to help him.
Chang Li's like, I'm not signing anything, man. And he's like, man, we can't do anything unless you do, dude. Come on. So Chang, I'm just going to call him Lee. His name's Lee because they do it in the movie. His name's Lee. He signs John Smith.
Which again, John Smith, just to point out to everybody, I had to look this up because the Doctor uses it a lot in the franchise of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And I had to wonder, because again, we would say John Doe. As Americans, generally speaking.
Guy we don't know, that's a John Doe.
And so I had to look this up. In England, it's still John Doe for police stuff, just like it would be here. But for the common public, they would use John Smith. Whereas in here, we all just use John Doe, generally speaking. If someone's talking to you about like an unnamed person, we all instantly think John Doe.
Well, over here, John Smith is a real person from the Pocahontas stuff.
Yeah, a British person, Bo. John Smith, though, it's just British name for unknown man.
Yeah.
And so that makes it very fitting for being what the Doctor uses whenever he needs a human...
Just generic human name. Because they use it in New Who a lot. I remember Matt Smith, like every other episode. He's like, John Smith.
So we got to the hospital. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. So you were like, he got shot once. The nurse's first word is, he took 1 to the shoulder and she said something about 2 to the legs.
Oh. Well, they didn't show him getting shot in the leg. I guess they couldn't afford the squib. They only had 1.
No idea. I think it's just that we couldn't see it because it was off screen. Because they show the one, it's a torso up shot when you see him in the shoulder. So he could got shot in the leg. We just wouldn't see it because we only saw torso up.
Yeah. Show, not tell. It's the whole point of movies.
But so he got shot 3 times. Only one of them mattered because the leg shots were not going to kill the doctor.
There's dialogue.
The nurse immediately says, 2 hearts.
Yeah, because she's got the chest X-ray up there.
He's got 2 hearts. And the other nurse is like, yeah, that's crazy. And then a doctor walks in and just gaslights the hell out of
he does. He's like, oh, shut up. There's double negatives. There's no way. Let's get these bullets out. But while he's getting the bullets out, they're listening to his heart. He's like, yo, there's weird stuff happening. So they have to call in what they call her, cardiologist specialist. Amazing Grace.
Yeah, immediately making fun of her to set up for us that she's supposed to be one of those type of people who is an overachiever.
Yeah, she's at the top of her game. She's the best of the best. And super into opera. Cut to...
She's at an opera.
She is in a big ball gown and just got the tear going because it's so pretty. I hate opera.
But so she's there and she gets the beeper call.
And she has to leave and her boyfriend's like... And I'm like, oh, fuck you, Blondie. We get the cool scene of her running in the dress, all slow-mo, with the opera music still going in the background through the hospital.
But then she gets to the changing room.
Yeah.
And she keeps the dress on, but then puts everything on over top of it. But for this, again, this being the American Doctor Who, and it needs to have sex, drugs, and violence, they made sure that when she's putting on that gown, for the split second, you see it looks like her cleavage is about to come straight out.
They are pushed together.
And again, this is not one of those things where you're looking for it. They
make sure you see it.
You can tell that this is 90s American television, and they were like, this is what sells. We need to make sure we get at least one scene where this is front and center.
Yeah, the director's behind the camera guy like, now zoom in right here at an angle so you can really see.
Yeah. We see her fully dressed. She gets into the operating room. The doctor is supposed to already be out. They've already... He's out because of the wound, and they've already drugged him and prepped for surgery, and he wakes up and he's like, don't do this.
Whatever you're about to do, don't do it.
I'm not human. And again, I understand you wouldn't necessarily believe that I'm not human stuff coming from the man.
But the guy just snapped awake
several times after being heavily
sedated.
They had
a hard time putting him down.
My thing is, as a doctor, I just feel like maybe you would think this isn't medically safe right now. What if he jumps up again? He already shouldn't be jumping up. And he's done it multiple times.
We had to gas him 3 times before he finally stopped moving.
They decide they're going to go ahead and do this surgery.
The big probe wire, feed it in to his heart, figure out why it's...
You're beyond me, man.
Doing whatever they think it's doing.
I was like, I'm not a cardiologist. I don't know what the purpose of that was supposed to be.
It's got a camera on it. They can see because she's going and doing it, and... she's like, where am I? And the dude's like, well, you're here. She's like, I shouldn't be there. She's completely lost because he has 2 hearts. They don't believe that, right? And she's just like, well, I'm going to try something. And I love that I'm going to try something literally just entails, I'm going to jab this thing in really hard because I'm stuck on something. And when she does, doctor kicks and just everything starts going to hell at that point. He starts flatlining. The probe snaps inside. It's a really intense scene. They pull the paddles, and the whole time this just intense opera music is going on in the background. And they are shocking the doctor, and he wakes up, screams. They all kind of scream, and then the doctor dies. Flatlines.
And we'd be a lot more upset about this. But again, if you're a Doctor Who fan and you're watching this, you're not even worried about it.
No, you're like, he's on Regen 7. He's totally fine.
Yeah, he's got plenty more to go. We're just going to see a new face.
Yeah.
If you're not a Doctor Who fan, the moment might make you pause.
Like, well, what's the rest of the movie now?
At this moment, we're going to stop here. I don't know how many scenes we might have jumped back and forth across here, but it's a good moment for us to stop and go check in on our dear EMT Bruce, because at this moment in the movie, Bruce is asleep at home,
snoring away.
His wife is awake, getting really pissed off that he's making so much noise. We've all been there. Come on.
You don't want to wake them up, but you're kind of hoping they'll hear you.
You're hoping that, again, you're not hoping to wake them up. You're just hoping that somehow they're conscious enough to hear it and do something about it. We've all been there.
Yeah.
But so she's getting so mad. Now, I want to make a point this time. So far, we've only seen goo.
Vaseline master.
Like, that's what we saw slide around. Again, it was still supposed to be CG, whatever. Yeah, but it looked more like Vaseline at that time.
Yeah.
And then when we see it ooze out of the TARDIS during the shootout scene, it was definitely Vaseline.
Yeah, definitely goo. I know how they did that effect. They literally just
they pumped
syringe.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And then squeezed Vaseline through the hole.
The Master made his escape from the TARDIS during the shootout. And again, we had no idea where he went. Until right now, we see that he
hitched a ride on Bruce's clothes.
We did see him slide into the ambulance, right? So you see that he slid into the ambulance, but it's a quick scene. But you don't know that he's with Bruce. That's amazing. This is the moment where we find out that after he left the TARDIS and the ambulance, he stuck with Bruce instead of trying to find.
Yeah, he hit on his clothes, which I'm like, you didn't notice the big goo.
When we see the Master in this form slide across to get into Bruce, to take over Bruce's body, we can see that it's some kind of snake. We just see that there's a weird snake fastly slithering across the floor. It's like jet propulsion snake. Then right before it takes over Bruce, which it does by entering through his mouth, which is disturbing to start with.
Yeah.
We get a good look at this wormified version, snakeified version of the Master.
Like a cobra, like a demon cobra.
It's not even just a cobra. It looks like a cobra that's supposed to be an Egyptian pharaoh. Like, his head looks extra like that, like King Tut style headdress. Like, it looks more like that than it does Cobra flare. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I get a Cobra's flare has that look to it. Like, I mean it. Maybe you can go back and watch it.
I was watching it on a little screen, too.
Well, go back and watch it one more time. I swear the way
he's just wearing the headdress.
It looks like he's just wearing this headdress instead of it looking like a cobra. And so then we see it just dives right into Bruce and takes him over, and Bruce is gone.
Yeah, no more Bruce.
Well, we have Master Bruce.
We have Master Bruce now. That's what I'm calling him from now on. It's Master
Bruce. Clear distinction here. You never have to worry about not knowing when it's Bruce or Master Bruce because Eric Roberts' choice for vocal intonation as Master Bruce is insane.
He's gonna he sounds goofy. Everything.
He sounds like he's doing a comical interpretation of somebody else who was doing a real job. Because he sounds like he's mocking somebody who was doing this.
I must find the doctor.
I love Eric best of the best Roberts, I gotta say
some odd acting choices.
This being the mid 90s, this is like this is when his career started to taper off a little bit. You know, like you had the 80s, you had the early 90s, you have Best of the Best 1 and Best of the Best 2. Really, I mean, can we talk about anything else? I don't know if we need to. That's really what I mean, Eric Roberts though is choosing here. You almost see this as the choices he used for his character, and you're like, I think I understand why people stopped hiring him. Because unless somebody else told him to do this way, this was a weird choice, man. And I'm surprised they filmed it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but he's shredded though, so definitely the like
for the one scene we see,
we need a sexy villain. Who do we got? Eric Roberts ain't doing anything. Get him on the phone.
We now are dealing with Master Bruce at this point. Master Bruce. And so Master Bruce looks out the window. He tells us he definitely needs to get the doctor's body. So we know
body won't last.
We can assume two things. One, he is not trying to find the doctor to kill him directly.
No, directly. He wants
something.
Siphon off his life.
And two, that this body won't last because that's obviously why he needs the doctor's body. He doesn't say he needs the doctor.
He needs his body.
And we get clarification like the next time we see him. So if we skip that scene, just know we do get told that's what's happening. He needs the body so that way he can stay alive. This body won't hold him the way it's supposed to be.
Starts deteriorating.
It's got to be a Time Lord. It's got to have those two hearts. And so a regular human just going to burn up too fast.
Yeah.
And so at that point, we cut back to the hospital, right?
Yep.
And this is one of my favorite moments. It's so small. It flies by real quick. But we see that the doctor has died, and they're wheeling him to
the
morgue, and our morgue attendant, possibly doctor, because again, we have no idea. We don't know if he's supposed to be the doctor at the morgue or if he's just an attendant. I know all we get later on is two names of doctors.
Yeah, we just get a name.
But so we see Will Sasso. If you're a millennial,
if you were alive in the 90s, you know who Will Sasso is. Come on.
Mad TV. You are now watching
Mad TV. Mad.
And Will Sasso was one of the best parts of Mad TV. Yes, he was. And so we get Will Sasso in a very small, super unimportant part. He does not play any kind of integral piece to any kind of storyline here.
And don't expect anything really funny.
Yeah, they
try.
They got him here for some kind of comic relief, which again I will point out is so ironic since my favorite doctors are the kind of doctors that don't need comic relief characters because they are.
Yeah, they're already funny.
But this is the kind of doctor that needs that because he's not overly serious, but he is very dry. And so we get Will Sasso for a moment to try to be like,
hey guys, things up. The doctor just died. Here's Will Sasso.
Yeah, and again, this is early Will Sasso. This is Will Sasso with hair.
Which I was
not ready for.
No, I wasn't. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot you used to have hair.
And so this is super early Will Sasso. You get a couple of what were supposed to be funny scenes. They don't really play funny. Really.
It's the dialogue's fault, not his.
Yeah, and then we get to see that there's pounding going on inside the morgue, the crypt. I don't know what word to use for that.
Fridge.
Yeah.
The body fridge?
The one that specifically the doctor is in. Well, and again, it's so weird because in this movie they made the choice to say that it was literally like each one had full man-sized doors, not the little tiny closet slide-out doors, which you see in everything else.
So they could do this cool
it's so they could do. I know. It's so they could do this scene. I get it. But at the same time, it was like for the split second before they start showing
It's a meat locker, not a
I was
morgue.
Like, this is not a morgue. We hear banging. And Will Sasso's like banging.
Yeah, and he's watching Frankenstein, so it's even creepier.
Yeah, and so we see that as the banging is going on, the door is denting.
Right?
And so apparently we find out, and again, me and Bo will make sure to point this out to everybody, because this is one of those things where if you aren't a fan of Doctor Who, we're going to tell you, and you might just think it's normal.
Yeah.
It is not. This is not normal.
No.
When the Doctor goes through regeneration, there are lots of crazy powers that pop up, but one of them, as far as I know, has never been superhuman strength.
No.
And this man had superhuman strength. He beats down this door like he's Superman.
It is a 6-inch thick steel door, and he leaves like 9 dents in it before it just crashes. And I'm like, that's something the Hulk would do. That's not like the Doctor.
It happens a lot for regeneration in Doctor Who, but not always. When the Doctor first wakes up, he's very disoriented. He doesn't really know who or what's going on. Like, again, the 10th Doctor had a little bit of it when he regenerated. But the 11th, Matt Smith, his whole first episode is not remembering who he is. So sometimes it just happens. The Doctor doesn't really know what's going on.
And he's been dead for
he was dead. They tell us in the movie later on that he's dead longer than he should be because of this whole probe situation.
Thing where they had him under so much anesthesia and stuff.
So there's lots of reasons he doesn't remember for so long. So at this point, this man doesn't even understand what's happening because he's an alien, so he doesn't necessarily understand Morgue right now. So he doesn't know where he woke up. He doesn't understand why there's a toe tag tied to his toe. He doesn't understand any of this, and he's just walking nakedly through the hospital. With a, he grabs the sheet around him, and so we cut to a scene that is just baffling, where he is standing
in an abandoned hospital.
Yeah, he is not in the same hospital that we see before. He is in what is definitely a post-apocalyptic
trashed, looted hospital.
Half of the building isn't there, like the half where the camera is sitting and pointing from.
Right.
There's no wall behind it because it sounds like he is in the open air.
There's broken glass and stuff everywhere. This is where he sees his reflection and he's just like, "Who am I?"
Yeah, and there's broken pipes again.
Gushing water everywhere.
I can't get over how crazy this hospital was. Now's the part where we're probably going to start going kind of quick, guys.
Yeah, because this is where
we built you up to where the story now is going to start cutting lots.
The Master's back, the Doctor's back.
Yeah, which is the big incredible things that are about to happen. But now it's going to start going really quick. So buckle your seatbelts, guys.
The sun comes up and it goes to the Doctor. He's walking through another part. And he opens a locker, and there's the
scarf.
The scarf from one of the old Doctors that I recognize.
Yeah, it's not exactly the same scarf, but they definitely want you to see that he opens this locker, sees a scarf, and he's like, "Oh, I recognize this,"
because he's naked. He's looking for clothes.
Yeah. So the 4th Doctor, which is the most well-known old Doctor Who in America.
Yeah, the one I knew.
Yeah, it's the one that most people would know. It's the one that Simpsons make reference to. Yeah. It's the one that even if you don't know Doctor Who, if you see this guy somewhere, you would probably know that's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Because in America, he was the only one that really got brought, like PBS or something back in the day when Faulty Towers and stuff like that used to get brought over. They brought that over too. So we see him scrounge through. He finds the scarf. He throws it back in. He's like, I'm not wearing that this time. For a split second, I got to say this. It's not an important scene. It's a throwaway scene. But since we are talking about throwbacks to old Doctors, they really want you to feel this nostalgia for Doctor for a moment. Because right after he does that, we cut to Chang, who has his personal effects from the hospital, and he's looking through the Doctor's personal effects, and that moment is just to continue on this, like, hey, he had a scarf, and it's like, oh
look, he had a yo-yo,
he has this, he has the sonic screwdriver, and so they're just like, hey, check out all these things from the Doctor's history right here, right now.
Easter egg time.
Yeah. We then cut to the Doctor fully clothed, right?
Yeah, and he's sitting in the lobby, and the lady Doctor walks past him, and her boss wants to talk to her, and then we cut to the scene where he's trying to destroy the evidence of the Doctor dying and cover it up so they don't get in trouble, and she's all like, if you do this, I'm gonna quit. And he's like, you're not gonna quit, shut up.
Oh, we skipped one scene.
We'll
come right back to it. We skipped the part where our man, the reason he's got the effects outside, Chang Li, the reason he's got the effects outside is because there was a scene where after the Doctor died, again, this is, guys, we apologize, but this is what happens when the movie is cut the way this movie is. It's really hard.
Bounces.
There's a scene where they give the personal effects to Lee, and she realizes, hey, he doesn't know this guy, and she wants to get him back before, and he just darts down the hallway, and she starts to chase after him. It's like 5 seconds, if that. It's not very long. The only reason I want to bring this up, this is for those Doctor Who fans. For me, This moment felt like the reason why in New Who and Torchwood and all the Doctor Who connected stuff nowadays has running scenes. This feels like the proto running scene.
Proto running scene.
Like they give it a special music montage for a split second. He starts to run. It's the slow-mo run, like you said for her earlier. The intensity is just more because now it's not just her running down the hallway by herself. It's like there's a chase.
Yeah.
And like that is so much like David Tennant era of Doctor Who and Torchwood especially. Like they're always running.
They always run.
There's always running. There's at least 2 montages of a running scene in every episode.
Because you have to.
And so like I feel like that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about that real quick. Plus it sets up why he had the
stuff in the bag and stuff. And the key to the TARDIS.
The key to the TARDIS because that's in the bag.
See, there's a cool key though.
The alien key. Super
I want
alien.
that. I want that as a necklace because every other Doctor's key is just kind of like an old like Victorian skeleton key thing.
So they're not even a skeleton key. Like David Tennant's was just like a key.
It was just
like
a regular key.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not cool. I liked this key. It was my favorite key. She quits.
Let's get back to where we were.
Yeah.
Sorry about that cutback, guys. But for the fans, I had to throw in the fact that I feel like that's definitely where they got this whole we need to make the Doctor run all the time because it plays off really well for the 5 seconds they give you it.
Yeah, no, it's a fun little scene because he parkours right out of there, jumping over stuff.
That scene then, like we were saying, it cuts into the Doctor showing up and seeing her in the hallway. She technically is no longer a Doctor, I guess.
Yeah, he follows her out to the parking garage.
Well, they're in the elevator at first, and that's he's trying to convince her. The only reason I bring up the elevator is because the elevator scene is where you see that he still has the toe tag on. Yeah, like he's fully clothed, but no shoes yet, so he still has the toe tag on his foot.
Because he doesn't know what it is.
Yeah, he doesn't
like, I'll just leave it there.
It's
fine.
They go into the elevator, and we got this whole moment between the two of them. He's trying to convince her
to help him.
Well, and that he knows her.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Puccini.
Yeah, you were there. I remember you.
The music. I heard the music.
And she's like, because he's a different dude now.
Yeah, he looks different.
I have no idea who you are. Leave me alone. She throws all her stuff in the car, and she's like, oh, well, he left. And then she gets in her car, and bam, magically, he's in the back seat, freaking out because there's a wire sticking out of him. And I loved the delivery on this. He's just like, he starts pulling out. He's like, what is this? What is this? It's very British. He's like, I'm upset, but I'm more annoyed than anything else that there's this wire sticking out of me.
And this is the moment where she realizes
that's the same guy, because there's no way that anybody else would have a broken cardiac probe stuck in him.
She now realizes, hey, this is the Doctor. Well, this is the guy I saw.
This is the guy that died.
Because he still doesn't know that he's the Doctor at this moment. He's still trying to figure out who he is.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that he is an alien.
He just knows he has 2 hearts.
Because he feels them, and she said it. And again, like we said, this movie hammers home.
This is where he screams it. This is where he's just like, he's like, I have 2 hearts. You have to help me.
He is in the car with her. They go to her house. Is this when he mentions Gallifrey but doesn't know what it is?
No, that's later. This is
so again, that's why there's so much time that goes by that's not really anything happening.
No, this is just the funny scene where she shows up and she's like, my boyfriend took all of my stuff.
While this is going on, we'll cut back to Eric Roberts as AKA Master Bruce. So last time we were talking about Master Bruce, he had just become Master Bruce. Nothing had really gone on with him. So we cut to the morning. Like we said, it was morning for the Doctor, and we told you all about his morning.
Yeah.
So the Master's morning, at the same time.
Doesn't take as long.
Yeah, it's a little bit quicker. But again, the way they tell this story, they intersperse it through so much of the scenes that we just went through.
Cuts back and forth.
But so his morning just consists of waking up, killing Bruce's wife because she was still annoyed with Bruce.
Yeah, turns around and he's got the weird reptile
snake eyes.
And she starts to scream and he's like, can't have that.
But he realizes he needs to try to track down the Doctor. And I guess he can remember what Bruce remembers. He vaguely knows he needs to find the person that took him
to the hospital. Yeah.
So he goes back to the hospital to ask about the Doctor, and they tell him the body's gone. Walked away on its own.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, what about the person who brought him in? Or no, they just mentioned. And that person ran off with the stuff,
with
right?
the stuff. Yeah. And he's just like, the Asian child.
Which is very strange.
Weird.
I don't know if that was a good choice. At the time, it was fine. Today, strange.
After watching it the more you watch things, the more you critique them. After the 4th time watching it, I was like, that is such a weird delivery on that.
Especially like they say it, and he's not like Chang Lee's not like again
20.
for people who decide not to watch the movie. He is in his 20s.
Yeah,
he's not a child.
25.
He's definitely old enough. Again, like I was gonna say, like I'm old enough that there are definitely people who are 20. I think I look at and I'm like they're a child. He doesn't look like that.
No, he's like 25.
He looks like a young adult.
Yeah.
It's very weird. It's very much like he's calling him boy type moment when he says Asian child.
They rips his pinky nail off
in front of the nurse.
In front of that nurse, and she's just like, okay. Then we go back to the doctor.
Well, we if we want, we can go ahead. He does find.
Yeah, we can.
He finds Lee because that doesn't affect me.
Because Lee takes the key to the TARDIS and goes inside.
And that's when the master runs into him at the TARDIS. Because again, the master knows where the TARDIS was. He was there. I guess
just knows that there's a secret key because he was just in there. He recruits Lee.
By lying to him.
Like, no, the doctor's evil. He stole all of my lives and used them for evil.
Yeah, and he's evil. Like, he essentially tells him
he was Genghis Khan. Lee don't know no better. He goes with it. Plus,
I feel like he's slightly hypnotized because we find out later he does this.
Yeah, he does have mind power stuff.
And I feel like he just isn't using all of it on Lee, but he's got to be using some because it just seems like...
Well, he does do the thing where he makes him give him the bag, and then Lee's kind of like,
because it seems like it just goes. He goes along with it too easily.
Yeah, a little too easily.
All right, so that's a good stopping point right there for them because the next part is the part that ties in with more of the doctor stuff. Yeah. When they go to the cloister room.
Oh yeah, the cloister.
Because that's the next thing that they do. They go from the main room of the TARDIS to the cloister room. But we'll come back to them in the cloister room. So we go to the doctor and his doctor, not to be confusing.
The doctor.
So that's the doctor and Grace. So that way we make sure we keep them separate because the doctor has no name other than the doctor. So it's really confusing if he travels with a doctor. But so
it's like the old MASH joke, doctor.
So the doctor is traveling with Grace at this point, and the doctor finally gets shoes. How did he get the shoes?
They're Brian's shoes, her ex-boyfriend. Yeah. He took everything. He took the couch, but left his shoes for some reason.
No sense. And the doctor finally has a full outfit. And he's walking with her. There's definitely a lot of water beside them. Whatever is going on, wherever she took him. For some reason,
it seems like it's not far from her house.
They're still just out. They're talking. He doesn't know who he is, but he remembers the word Gallifrey now, and he's asking her, "Where's Gallifrey?" Like it's a town.
Yeah,
planet. And it's our planet.
Yeah, and he remembers watching Shooting Stars with his dad, and he's freaking out about it. He's like, "Oh, the colors, the purples, the blues, the yellows. Yes, these shoes fit perfectly." And he does a little dance and runs off camera. Grace actually looks dead at the camera, like, "What the hell?" And then we cut to another scene.
Yeah. And so at this...
That's where we go to the cloister room.
And now we're going to... Yeah, so again, normally we're not going to do the cuts where the movie does a cut, but this one kind of works for why they put the cut here. It's because they wanted a break from the weirdness of that scene.
Yeah.
If they would have shown you the doctor's reaction to what happens in the cloister room, then cut back to the cloister room, you'd have been really confused.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked.
So this time, you really kind of need to know it this way. And so they cut to the cloister room. I know we keep saying that word like it's supposed to mean something to you, and it won't. It didn't mean anything to Bo before watching this movie. It only meant something to me because I watched the old series, and it's a word that's been made up and existed in Doctor Who for a long time.
Oh, so it used to be for old series.
Yeah, it used to be for bells. There were cloister bells that existed in the TARDIS. I don't know what they did. Don't ask me. I didn't watch enough of Old Who to know that, but I know that they existed and they were there. And so the cloister room, I would assume, has something to do with those.
I didn't see no bell.
There were no bells, and I'm not trying to say that there is a connection of bells. I'm just saying like that's the connection for the weird word cloister. Yes, guys, that is like oyster with a CL in the front. Cloister. But so they go to the cloister room and we see that there's a giant stone eyeball in the middle of the room. And the master convinces Lee that he has to look into it.
So they can find where the doctor is and get his body and stuff.
And so as soon as Lee agrees to do this and he looks in, the giant stone eye starts to open. And when it opens, both the master now can see and sense the doctor and where he's at, right?
Yeah, he can hear him even too.
But the other side effect of this is that the doctor now remembers who he is and everything about himself.
Yeah, so he gets all his memories back all of a sudden, and he's super happy. And him and Grace kiss.
Yeah, which is very strange.
Which was weird.
Because that's not a Doctor. Yeah. That's not a very Doctor Who thing. He always has companions, sometimes female. most of them don't have an attraction to him, and even when they do, it's always a will they, won't they, and generally won't they.
Yeah, no.
The doctor himself has never, the actual doctor
has
never.
Clones don't count.
Exactly. There are clones and weird things that have had relationships with companions, but the doctor himself.
Yeah.
It's a no-go territory.
That's why I like Donna. Donna was just like her.
Wanted to be
one of the boys.
Yeah. The doctor now knows everything about who he is, and so he knows he needs to find the master, stop the master.
And he knows that he's opened the eye.
And so at this point,
this is where Grace starts to freak out finally. She's been so cool with everything up to this point, like all the 2 hearts and everything.
Yeah, Grace has definitely been one of those totally weird, unexpected characters because she has been okay with a lot of crazy stuff happening that most people would 100% be like, what?
Yeah.
Like, she's had a guy who's got 2 hearts, and now she has accepted that this is the same man that she killed on the operating table.
Right.
Not
Who
only
has a different face.
Yeah, not only is he back from the dead,
but he looks completely different.
He is now magically 30 years younger than he was.
And much more handsome.
And she's fine with that. And she's even made out with this man.
Yes. She was into it. She told him to do it again.
All of that's fine.
But this is where she finally freaks out.
And snaps.
Like, save the world. Oh, that's my line. No, I can't help you here. Yeah. I'm going to run.
And so at this point, we officially start into save the world.
Yeah,
like now we're really saving the world.
We have a time limit. We have till midnight or the eye is going to suck the entire planet into it and none of this is going to matter.
Yep. And so at this point,
she runs away and the doctor is still trying to convince her, but the master can hear everything that's happening. So it keeps cutting back and forth between the master and Lee, Master Bruce Lee. They're just standing there listening in on what's going on. But she runs home and gets on the phone to call an ambulance to get him took to the psych ward because he's crazy now. I'm like, you didn't think he was crazy before.
And that's when we see the part where the doctor is like, but you don't understand. The world is already ending. First he just says, look, it's stretching. Moving. And he pushes his hand and makes a piece of glass move like it's rubber. And then she still is like, I don't know. And she's telling the ambulance, like, maybe you need to take 2 of us.
Yeah, we need 2 beds now.
And then that's when he's like, no, we don't need any. And he just like walks straight through solid glass like it's air.
Yeah, and then she just kind of like sits down and stuff. And then it cuts back to Bruce and he's like, well, you heard the lady. She needs an ambulance because he's an EMT. He's got one of those.
So now we see that he both is on his way to try to stop them and he knows their plan.
Yeah,
because he's been watching since he now has a magical way to hear everything the doctor is doing. He shows up.
The doctor immediately recognizes him, but he plays it off.
I don't know if it was immediate. I feel like the doctor sensed something and was just like, I got to keep an eye on this guy because something's not right. Well, because again, it wasn't until the moment in that ambulance scene when the glasses came off where he knew.
Where he was immediate. Like, I got to do something now.
And so I feel like it was just the doctor always has this like almost spidey sense, right? The sixth sense about like things that are going on. And I think he just had that something's not right. And then he was watching for it, waiting to see what wasn't right. They're in the ambulance. Master Bruce
Lee.
Master Bruce has convinced his
young protege
to drive the ambulance, and he is in the back wearing his
T-2000
crazy leather jacket.
Right. Somebody watched Terminator and was like, you're gonna look great.
Yeah, I've already said the doctor realizes it's him because his glasses fall off. And once the doctor realizes it's him, at first he pulls a classic doctor moment where he's just like, I'm not going to say, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let this play out.
Starts freaking out about how they're stuck in traffic.
And then immediately he turns around and was like, oh, but these! And rips the glasses back off. And we see the snake eyes and the master freaks out.
And turns into a xenomorph for some reason. He spits acid goo
at Grace's hand.
And burns her.
And so the doctor immediately starts shooting the fire extinguisher off.
Which makes Eric Roberts react like he's being burned, which makes no sense.
But the doctor acted like he knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. They make their escape and run.
We
skipped why they're going.
Oh, the beryllium clock. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it's okay. They have to go to the beryllium clock because they need a piece of it, atoms, to help fuel the TARDIS, so that way it can travel. Sorry, guys, we forgot that. At this point, though, they finally leave the ambulance, and when they leave the ambulance, it's in the middle of the street
during a traffic jam,
and so the cops stop, and the
traffic jam caused by a bunch of chickens on a flatbed truck, which made no sense.
It's a movie; they needed it. But so the cops are there, and Grace and the doctor realize they still need to leave, and so they're trying to get past the cop, and nothing's working at first, and so the doctor doctor just randomly reaches into his jacket, pulls out a candy and goes, "Do you want a jelly, baby?"
It makes this fucking noise to him.
Which again is a throwback to one of the other doctors. It's classic.
The cop takes it.
It looks very confused as he's taking it.
And while he's eating it, the doctor snatches his gun and
points it at his own chest.
Right? He's like, "Now, kindly get out of my way before I kill myself."
Such a strange line.
I cracked up.
There's a little bit of the scene. Grace gets the gun, but then she shoots the cop's radio.
Yeah, because they're trying to make you think like, oh, well, maybe she's not going to go with the doctor, but she does. She shoots the radio, I guess, and get the keys, and off they go.
And so now all of a sudden we get
car chase.
Well, no, it's not just a car chase though, right? It's a car chase / race scene, because for half of it they are chasing each other. The Eric Roberts as Master Bruce Lee are all in the ambulance chasing after the
motorcycle,
the police motorcycle with the doctor and Grace on it
for like 30 seconds,
and then all of a sudden
it turns into we have to get to the clock first.
Then all of a sudden Lee is like, I know a shortcut. Since they know where they're going. And so they take the shortcut, but they still show everybody in their vehicles like it's a chase scene, but it's not. So at this point, it is a race scene.
Yeah.
Because we are seeing both of them.
Because they are very far away from each other.
Still speeding. Yeah. When the doctor and Grace show up to the clock, they realize that the ambulance is already there. So they're like, oh no, we really need to hurry. They get inside and Grace is like, let me introduce you to a friend of mine. And it's the doctor who made the beryllium clock. Now this is a scene I want to point out. We've already skipped past the first time it was mentioned, but because the first time it was kind of just brushed by.
Yeah, you could have easily missed it.
Especially not knowing anything about the Doctor Who franchise. But this time it's really played up, and it will be mentioned at least 2 more times after this time, because there's a very big piece of information in this made-for-TV movie.
Yeah.
She tells the scientist that the Doctor has a secret. I don't even know what she was trying to do, because she didn't know that.
Oh, he said he had a secret right before
I know, but she says it again.
Yeah.
To the science. The reason the scientist says, I want to know your secret, is because Grace says he has a secret.
Yeah, why would she do that?
Thank you. That's what I was getting at. It's a very weird scene.
That is very weird. Why would she do that?
Then all of a sudden, once she says it, the scientist wants to know the doctor's secret. The doctor has no idea. I don't even feel like the doctor knew what she was talking about. Right? Because he was like, I don't know what I should say right now. And so he just randomly is like, oh yeah, I'm half human on my mother's side. So the second time, the master made a really quick play on it real fast. He just was like, that's the secret. He's half human. So this is nuts. And this is one of the things that causes a lot of fans of Doctor Who to have problems with this movie, is because that is not something that is canon.
Yeah,
the Doctor's a Time Lord, and the first time we did this, the one of the things that you guys will never get to hear, other than hear us talk about it right now, and I wish you guys could see how embarrassed Bo looks, but you can't. But the first time we were talking about this, I literally stopped to mention this moment and about how insane it is that they talk about it, and I'm starting to build it up, and I look over at Bo, and I can just see this look of him being like, what are you talking about? Nothing important happens right here.
Like, he just makes a joke is all I took it as.
And I went back and I was like, but no, man, that's really important. That's really crazy. The Doctor is a Time Lord, not half human. That's never been said. And he was just, I don't know why. What are you? That's not important. It is. It's important. It's important in the movie. They make a big deal about it. Bo didn't even realize they made a big deal about it. He was just like, what? What are you talking about?
In my head, I was like, that's not right. That, delete. But I'm just going to ignore that because it's so incorrect.
And so Bo went back after we lost the episode, watched it again, and as soon as he got here this morning, before we even started recording, I asked him, I said, so this time, did you at least catch the importance of that? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So yes, we have a great moment, and we hope we did it justice in trying to relive it for you guys. But I promise you, if we could have that, I don't even know if I want that whole episode.
Just that clip.
I wish we could have the clip of the moment where I was trying to convince Bo, it was supposed to be important when they talked about it.
The genuine confusion from me of like, what are you talking? No, because like in my head, I'm like, no, the Doctor's not half human. I know this.
But yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
But you got to remember, most of the people that were going to watch this movie didn't know that. And so it was a huge, shocking, weird revelation they wanted to ham fist into this movie.
Yeah, my brain was just like, nope, that's so wrong. I refuse to even acknowledge it.
And so we can obviously acknowledge that the reason they did this was just because they were going to make that part of if this got picked up.
Yeah,
that was
for
going to be
a-
the quirk of the Doctor for the new series,
I mean,
obviously.
More, you could do some interesting writing choices with that.
Yeah,
You could, but then it gets weird.
Because none of the previous Doctors were happy.
Yeah.
Especially on their mother's
Yeah,
side.
I was gonna say, I was like, then they're like, some writer's gonna be like, well, why don't we introduce his mom?
Which I think they haven't. She's
She-
a time lady.
Yeah, I was like, she's a, yeah, but are they time ladies? Or are they
Yeah,
not?
no, they're time ladies.
Nice.
So the Doctor tells his secret and then
Snatches his ID badge. So
and
they
makes
can-
it a clock. Again, we're going quick because the movie realized, much like Night of the Comet, hey, we're running out of film time. We need to kind of get the story moving. They realized that they've got the badge. They go up. They steal
Snatch
the
little
piece.
chip. It's a
Because
little
again,
chip.
all they needed was an atom, and I guess it's part of the chip. But so they get the thing they need. They leave. They go back to the TARDIS. We get a funny moment at the TARDIS because apparently, despite the fact that they have been inside this institute, the police were still looking for them because the police officer chases them on the motorcycle into the TARDIS
He
and then
drives
back
it
out.
in and then drives it back out screaming and
Yeah.
just drives away.
Again, guys, I apologize. I'm probably not remembering a reason for why that cop shows up, but that is far, far after the moment when they stole the police
Yeah, no, I
motorcycle.
swear that's just random. As they just like open because they open the door, they have the thing where they're like, oh, there's a spare key.
Spare key on top.
On top, and then as soon as they open the door, they hear the siren things, and they just kind of step out of the way, and in he goes. This scene was
Turns around.
purely done for comedy.
Turns around, comes
Comes
out.
right back out.
And then we get the moment where Grace walks into the TARDIS for the first time, and then we get robbed. Every time a companion enters the TARDIS for the first time, we're supposed to hear the famous lines, It's bigger on the inside. And this time we didn't get that. And the
No.
Doctor was waiting for it. And instead, Grace, being the kind of smart-ass type character they made her out to be, was
Yeah.
just like, oh, you mean it's blah, 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 and goes super science-y.
That explains the spatial distortion on our entrance. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, shut the hell up.
And even the Doctor, that
Yeah,
was
the
his,
do-
the
look.
Doctor, the Doctor
The look
looks
on
up
his
at her and
face.
goes, I guess you could say it that way.
Yeah, I was like, I guess so. Right.
They're on
They
the...
hook up the chip.
Yeah, he hooks up the chip. He has a weird conversation with her about how it's as simple as setting an alarm
Something
clock.
about an alarm clock.
Which is something that most Americans in 1996 had problems with. I don't know if they were trying to make that joke or if they
I
were
guess.
actually trying to say it's easy. I don't know which way they were going with that.
It shuts the eye, but it's too late. The eye was open for too long.
And things are already starting to get
Yep.
wonky.
Yep. And then Master Bruce Lee shows up
And-
mind whammies
Grace, and she then knocks out the Doctor.
Just a big square looking chunk of metal just clocks him real good.
Then
Then they tie him to a gurney and roll him into the eye room.
Which
right?
was silly because they immediately take him from the gurney and
and then tie
him up by his arms.
by
So there
his
was
arms, yeah.
the chaining him to the gurney was a silly scene. They just wanted us. They wanted you to know he was imprisoned. The Master reveals his master plan, which is that he's going to open the eye, use these special
reflector things and
to have the life force moved from the Doctor to him,
Over to him.
reversed from each other.
Yeah.
So the Doctor would get the no regenerations left and basically be almost dead, and the
and then
Master
he would get like the whatever
five or six or seven, whatever's left. That's the plan. It's working.
Yeah.
He thinks, but he messes up. Now messes up and says something in a way that lets our hero, we can definitely call him that now,
Yeah.
Lee, know
That he's lying to me.
he's been lying. He's not the good guy.
He's the bad guy. And,
And
all
so-
because the Master said, I wasted my lives on you, pointing at the Doctor.
And as soon as he realizes that, the Doctor helps him. You know, the Doctor's like, "See, you heard him. He said
Yeah.
it." And so Lee says, "I'm not gonna
doing nothing.
look at that. I'm not opening your cloister eye again."
Yeah, he dies.
So he gets killed.
Yeah,
the Master says, "I don't need you."
I don't just...
The Doctor thinks that, again, he still thinks the world's going to end, but he thinks
Yeah.
at least that the Master's not going to get what he wants.
Yeah, he's like, well, what are you going to do now? You killed your crony
And the Master's like, "Oh, but I can undo this zombification
on your
Grace.
girlfriend here."
just long enough to make her look in." And so that's what he does.
Yeah, kisses her, and that magically fixes it
Yeah.
somehow. Because, Eric Roberts got them magic.
They start reversing everything. Once that happens, the process starts.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
the-
not reverse. I didn't mean reverse. I was in my head picturing transference, but
Yeah.
said reverse. So they're transferring from the Doctor
Yeah,
to
and the master can't move.
Yeah, well, neither of them.
Yeah,
If either
they have
one
to
moves,
stay in that same spot.
then it
right?
breaks what's going to happen. Yeah, they have to stay exactly there because those things are pointed right at their eyes essentially,
Yeah.
right? That's why the doctor's got the
things holding his eyes open.
And so everything is getting crazy. We cut to the world and like stuff is
Like,
distorting and stretching, pulling,
Sparking
I don't know.
into nothingness.
The extreme time scientist who made the beryllium clock is all of a sudden a transcendental yoga and is doing meditation. Yeah, Will Sasso is at a crazy
Party, dude.
because again, we forgot to mention earlier, it's not been important for the whole movie, but we'll mention it right now just because it's a trope of the 90s and it has to be mentioned. It is New Year's Eve, 1999. Yes, we said 1999. The movie was made in 96. That's how the 90s were. We were all fascinated with 1999.
Yeah, in the early 90s, it was party like it's 1999. Then in the late 90s, it was like,
We're
oh
gonna
God,
die.
the world's going to end. We're all dead.
And so this is floating somewhere in between.
Yeah, so they're kind of like, yeah, party, but we might
But the
die.
world is gonna end.
But the world's going to end, you know? Best of both worlds.
But so we can see that everything is, like the doctor said, about to go bad.
And
But he is able to convince, because Grace, once the master did everything with Grace, he did not re-zombify her.
yeah, so she's still just free to do things.
And so the doctor was like, remember the conversation we had?
Yeah.
Remember setting the alarm clock? Set the alarm clock.
Yeah, and then she goes and I like what she says when she gets under the console. She pulls all these wires out and all this dust and stuff comes out and she just goes, oh, what did I do? Back to the New Year's party where they're counting down. Be like, got 30 seconds.
Will Sasso and the Nixon mask
Yeah.
on, partying it down.
Oh, yeah, having a great time.
But so yeah, she finally gets it connected.
Yeah, right at 1. That's very important because everything happens at 1.
And as soon as she connects it, this is where it gets weird, because normally everything that happens time-wise outside the TARDIS is not affected inside the TARDIS, but
No.
whatever she did apparently makes the time stuff in the TARDIS reverse.
Yeah.
So all of the stuff that's happening with this transferal from the regenerations from the Doctor to the Master is now just going back to how it's supposed to be. The Doctor gets his lives back. Everything's
Master
okay.
gets his 1 half-life back.
And he's suffering and he's upset. Grace runs back in, and as soon as she runs in,
And she's trying to get the doctor
she's
out.
trying to free the Doctor, and the Master runs
just
up, throws her, and
She
kills
takes
her.
Man, she
Kills her?
took a hell of a bump, but I don't think that would kill you.
Yeah,
like,
kills her. I get major.
No,
Again, I want to
knock
say
you
this
out,
question
maybe.
mark. If I could say a question mark in
If
that,
she would have landed on her head and not like her shoulder and rolled.
but that's not what we see.
Yeah, but like she's dead, quote unquote.
But so then,
Doctor's like, no. And
so-
they have a fight, and the TARDIS eats the Master? Is that
Yes,
what happens?
the Cloister Eye
The Cloister Eye just eats the Master?
Later on, we even get a burp, right?
Yeah,
they
burp,
talk about it in
and
the
he
burp.
says indigestion.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just the magical ending there, and that's basically the ending
Yeah,
of the
that's
movie. After
basically
this,
it.
we get our nice happy wrap up. So
Yeah, the
we,
TARDIS brings Lee and
we get
Grace back
there's-
to life.
The TARDIS has just enough magical.
Magic?
I want to say magic, even though technically it's supposed to be science, but there's magical
Magic.
time forces left that it brings both of them back from the dead. The Doctor says specifically, "You guys have been someplace I've never been." Talking about dead.
Lee cracks me up when he wakes up because he just like looks at the doctor's like, "Doctor, I have your stuff." Like they're old buddies.
Yeah, like they're buddies.
He wasn't like most of the problem.
Well, and again,
through
at
this.
no point has he barely even spoke to the Doctor.
No.
Like again, he found the Doctor dead.
Pretty, yeah.
And took him to the hot. Well, I mean, again, dead enough he didn't speak to the character. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
by the time he got into the hospital, that man had not woke up and said anything to him. All he heard from that man was "Stop it!"
Stop the thing.
And then he's only heard him talking to the Master, not directly to Lee himself.
But he just wakes up like their buddies. Like, man, I got your stuff. You want it back?
Yeah, and so then the Doctor asks them where he should drop them, what time and place. He drops them
We get a little bit of
right
a joke.
before midnight, right? He drops
Yeah.
so he drops them off
like 10 seconds before
where they
midnight.
essentially because they did live through this entire
Yeah.
but they also just now don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird because Doctor's time travel is always very strange.
With
So
a
he drops them
wobbly,
off.
timey-wimey.
He drops them off, and essentially they get to celebrate the new
New
year.
Year.
And then we
Lee
see
gets-
them all talking.
Lee gets to make off with 2 big ass bags of gold.
Yeah,
Live
and-
fat.
And then the Doctor tells him not to do something.
He's just like, yo, next Christmas, you take a vacation. Just, don't be here. You know what I mean? He's just like, got it.
And
right?
then Grace also, they just kind of do a wrap up, but
Yeah.
she's not going to go with the Doctor. She's
No.
definitely staying. Now, This being said, obviously we have already mentioned this was a backdoor pilot.
The next episode
would have been him finding a reason to come back because those two would have been the companions traveling with the doctor.
He would have been like, I need a doctor, another doctor, or something stupid.
But yeah, so that was the movie. That's just how it is. There's no. I mean,
he gets back on the TARDIS and flies off, starts playing that smooth jazz again.
Because again, like we said, the idea here, it did end up being a encapsulated one story for itself, but they thought they were going to be going more, so they didn't have any kind of grandiose ending. It wasn't like super.
No, it was literally more of a join us next time.
Exactly, because it was wrapping up like they hoped you'd be watching more soon.
I kind of wish it was. I liked this doctor. Like, I really wish he would have at least got like a British season of like 6-7 episodes.
Oh, unfortunately not.
No, I don't ever get what I want.
All right, guys. But so that was Doctor Who the movie. We are officially done with that. We need to go ahead now and do our little
wrap up.
Our wrap up here, where we know, where we let you know
the next beer that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing Gravely Oompa Oktoberfest from Gravely Brewing Company, right? Is that what it was?
Yep.
All right, cool. So go look for that on Instagram. Make your guesses on what the next movie is. Again,
you can leave those guesses on Instagram.
YouTube.
Leave it
comments.
as a YouTube comment if you need to.
We need more YouTube comments because that helps the whatever algorithm.
That's right. Make sure you like, subscribe, share,
button,
follow.
Push the button.
I can't think of any other words, but there's lots of them. Every place uses their own adjective. Use it. Do it.
You all know these things.
But so again, if you need to find us, that's going to be Instagram at Kentucky Fried Critics. The website to get to us is going to be shows.acast.com/Kentucky-Fried-Critics. I'm getting really good at that. And then other than that, it's YouTube. And if you want to find us on YouTube, just search Kentucky Fried Critics. You'll find us.
Just search it. We look like a Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket.
With a really cool face on it.
With a cool dude that I want to call Commander Pop Culture.
Maybe we will. Yeah, maybe that is officially his name. I think Bo has just done that.
I did that. Did I just name him? Sweet. Next is merch.
Point, guys. We are officially done. We're out. We will talk to you later.
All right, cool. Let's get back to the TARDIS.
Puccini.